night of April 14th, 1865, Booth enters the theater of Ford for the first time to mainly scope it out. At 9:05, Booth goes under the stage, leaves the theater, and goes back to the bar across the lobby. At 9:50, after drinking, he goes back to the lobby of the theater. At 10 o'clock, he readies his weapons after he's snuck past and is behind the box of Lincoln's box. 10:13, he enters the box, bars the way, and at 10:15, he breaks in and shoots Lincoln. Now, while this assassination is going on against President Lincoln, David Herold and Lewis Powell go after Secretary of State Seward. Powell goes in, pretending to be a messenger, and injures Seward and his son Frederick, but doesn't kill either. After Seward's daughter, who tries to defend him, yells into the street for help, David Herold, who is also with Lewis Powell, makes a run for it. No one knows he's there. Also during this time, George Atzerodt, who is sent to kill Vice President Johnson, goes drinking in the bar of that hotel, but chooses to not kill him, decides it's a bad idea. During Booth's escape, he jumps onto the stage out of the box of the theater and goes out through the back way. Now, he's only chased by one man, an army major, and he manages to slip away on his horse. The army major can't keep up. When he gets to the bridge, obviously news of the assassinations haven't traveled as far as Sergeant Cobb and the people at the bridge. So Cobb, after being convinced, lets him through. Lincoln goes through and waits on the other end. He goes to the meeting point where he was supposed to meet his associates and waits. He manages to meet up with David Herold, the only other associate who managed to get out of Washington. And of course, they are the two that have main escape. No. Booth and Herold leave Washington and go to Surrattsville, where they pick up the shooting irons, a Spencer carbine, and 2 revolvers. The man who's there, who runs the tavern, is too, inebriated to really ask questions, so he doesn't raise an alarm or anything. After the stop in Surrattsville, they go to Bryantown on the outskirts, where they find the farm of Dr. Samuel A. Mudd, who takes them in and gives Booth medical attention. He gives them food and shelter, and lets them sleep there for the night. He lets them sleep there for a few days, of course, and realizes that they are the ones who have assassinated Lincoln, and orders them off the property. Booth and Herold go, of course, but not before being given the location of the next safe house they're going to be going to. Really halting. The next stop for Booth and Herold is Rich Hill, the house owned by Samuel Cox. He's an ex-Confederate captain who shows them Dent's Meadow where they camp. Cox and Jones, who he brings to help, take Booth and Herold across the river on Jones's boat. They get blown off course the first night and land on the banks of the Hughes farm. When Booth and Herold were blown off course trying to cross the Potomac, they landed near a place called the Hughes farm, owned by Mr. Hughes. They were taken to this farm and were given shelter and food for the night, where they tried again the next night. Finally, on their second try, they made it to Virginia. Booth and Herold, after they've landed in Virginia, first try the house of Mrs. Quisenberry, who gives them food and horses. After that, they tried the house of Dr. Richard Stewart, who gives them food but no shelter. They find their luck with Dr. Stewart's neighbors, the Lucases, who agree to rent them horses and a coach and a driver to take them to a a fisherman who takes them to Port Royal. Once in Port Royal, they meet up with some Confederate soldiers who take them to the Garrett farm. Booth and Harold rest at the Garrett farm for 2 nights. Meanwhile, Union soldiers find out that Booth and Harold were ferried with the Confederate soldiers, and go to interrogate one, named Willie Jett. After being interrogated, Jett reveals that Booth and Harold are indeed at the Garrett farm. Union soldiers quickly rush over to apprehend the fugitives, and manage to trap Booth and Harold in the barn. Booth and Harold, after much negotiation, Harold leaves, and Booth readies his weapons, preparing to fight his way out. Boston Corbett sees Booth raising his weapons and takes a shot, trying to protect his men. The bullet goes through Booth's neck and breaks his neck and paralyzes him. After several painful hours, Booth dies. During the 12-day manhunt, the rest of the conspirators of this plot are captured. George Atzerodt, who was assigned to kill the vice president, is arrested at the house of one of his relatives. He gives up without a fight. Powell hides for a few days in the city, and, not being familiar with most places, goes back to the boarding house owned by Mary Surratt. He's caught there, and both him and Mary Surratt are arrested. Harold is captured at the Garrett farm when he leaves, and all 4 are executed.